I wanted to start with this. You know, the Dallas Cowboys are a team that are talked about on every radio show, local and national. The Dallas Cowboys clearly have a talented roster. And if you look at gross stats, the number one offense in the National Football League. They have a quarterback who, by anyone's estimation, however good you think Dak Prescott is, Dak Prescott has been underpaid by the team during his NFL career because where he was selected in the draft. And if you know about the old collective bargaining agreement, that there was, it wasn't that the Cowboys didn't want to give him any money. There was no opportunity to pay him any more money than he was already being paid. So he made it up in endorsements. So the Cowboys, well, they want to re-sign Dak. They want us to re-sign Amari Cooper. They can't franchise tag Dak if they want to franchise tag Amari Cooper. If they franchise tag Dak, Amari Cooper could potentially walk out the door. And then, of course, you have Byron Jones, some other players they want to re-sign, and then they have to fit it all within the magical salary cap structure. Then I heard this from Tua Tagovailoa, of course, many people's number one player in the draft coming into the season, a season in which he was having a great year, but he suffered through an ankle injury and then a really devastating hip injury that he's recovering from now. Okay, so I want you to understand this is not a one-for-one, okay? This is not a one-for-one. And what happens with trades a lot of times is we think of just players and trades and how all that works, but there is the magic of salaries. Let's just say that Detroit says, hey, we have to win now. We would love to draft Tua, but we'd like to get a bunch of assets in this draft. And we could trade that number 3 pick to the Dallas Cowboys. You want to include Jalen Smith? We'll take your star linebacker. You want to include a couple more picks? Sure. This year's first rounder, next year's first round pick. Now, I'm not saying you trade Dak Prescott. I'm saying you let Dak Prescott potentially walk. Right? And here's the logic behind it. If you can pull off a trade that lands you Tua Tagovailoa, one, you could be better off in terms of his ceiling. Now, a lot of this depends upon his hip. But as good as Dak Prescott has been, it's a surprise how effective he's been in the National Football League. Whereas Tua, if you ask pundit upon pundit upon pundit upon analyst, they may say, well, he's gotten hurt in college because he's tried to run. He's not as athletic as maybe advertised. Everyone says he's bright. He's obviously a very good leader. He's tough. He's smart. He's incredibly accurate. And if you want to tell me that Dak Prescott's awesome, that's fine. I saw him against the Philadelphia Eagles on the road. And you can, the Cowboys fans will say, well, they don't have a very good defense this year. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. But I should point out that it wasn't the defense that scored 9 points against the Eagles. It wasn't the defense that scored on the opening drive of the first half and second half against the Bears and couldn't move the ball outside of that. It wasn't the defense, granted, it was in a monsoon, but the defense didn't score 9 points against the Patriots. The offense lit up the Redskins. The offense lit up the Rams. These are non-playoff teams, the Giants. The offense lit up the Redskins, the Giants, the Dolphins. They beat up on the bad teams, and against the good teams, there was a struggle. Some of it had to be play calling. Some of it had to be coaching. But some of it had to be quarterback play. And then when you factor in the money you would save if you simply move Dak Prescott, potentially, let's say, $32 to $36 million off the books, whatever that looked like in the salary cap, the number 3 spot, like Quinnen Williams last year, right? It's like $8 million a year. It'd be $9 million probably this year. And think about it. If you're going to save $20 million, potentially getting as good or a better quarterback, would you take that risk? Because the Dallas Cowboys are a talented team. Dak Prescott statistically had a good year, and all it got you was 8 wins. If Jerry Jones wants to tell the world that he's a gambler, that he's a gunslinger, he's an old cowboy, that he's willing to take risks, why not take that risk? Why not? You can easily be critical of the Cowboys not pouncing on the opportunity they had over the past couple years when they had a quarterback who was classically underpaid. You could have the same thing. You could hit reboot. You could hit refresh. And start with a quarterback who is far more advanced in terms of understanding defenses and offenses at this level, as opposed to Dak, who wasn't really a drop-back passer until maybe his last year at Mississippi State. And look at the immediate success they were able to have. Why? Because they supported him with a great offensive line, great run game. That still exists. And you can use that money to continue to improve the defense, which will only help your overall team. And you have him locked into that salary for the first 4 years. Is it a risk? Absolutely. But there's also risk in standing pat, because so many things went right this year, and they still only won 8 games. In years past, we've seen Dak Prescott's ceiling. When Zeke was suspended, couldn't get to the playoffs. Before they had Amari Cooper, couldn't move the football. That doesn't mean that every quarterback doesn't need weapons. He does. But the idea that he can carry a franchise, especially one that will be depleted because of the contract that he's likely to earn or likely to be given with his next contract, it just boggles the mind. They couldn't win consistently with him on a minimal couple $1 million deal. What makes you think they can field a good team around him when he's making top of the market money? The Cowboys have their out. Okay? They have their out. They never have to pay Dak Prescott more than they want to pay him by simply allowing him to walk, if they're willing to run, which is a substantial risk, and make a trade up to 3. And, oh, yeah, by the way, if they let him walk, right, the true leverage is, you know, walk out that door? All right. Who's going to pay him $30, $35 million? Tell me the team. Tell me where it exists. Would the Raiders be interested? Probably. But at that number, probably not. You tell me that Dak is that much better than Derek Carr, who I think it's $18 million. No, he's not. His value is in the Cowboys. It's basically what Emmitt Smith said. Hey, dude, take a little bit less. You can make a bunch on the back end with the endorsements. And I get that when Emmett's talking, it feels like you can barely see Jerry Jones' lips moving, right? There's a great ventriloquist act. But what he's saying is closer to the truth than you think. Would the Dolphins want him? Sure. At $35 million? No. No. And we all freaked out over Kirk Cousins. How could the Washington Redskins not love Kirk Cousins? And then Kirk Cousins signs a 3-year guaranteed deal, which, by the way, is limiting the Minnesota Vikings and put them in cap hell. And Kirk Cousins is exactly what we think. He's good to a point. You know, he's good to a point. That's what Dak Prescott is. And everyone who seems to know anything about football says Tua's got a chance to be better. Tua's likely to be better. Look, I'm just as nervous about the hip as anybody, if not more so, because you have no idea, you know, how it's going to heal, how it's going to look. But you do know that when healthy, that guy took Alabama's offense from one of the most boring things on earth to absolute lightning in a bottle. He's accurate. He's a leader. He's athletic enough in the pocket to be a modern-day quarterback. And he's got a strong arm that can make every throw, and is shown in the biggest of big games he will come through. And, oh, yeah, by the way, he would cost you $20 million at minimum less than Dak Prescott would cost you. Oh, and I might want to throw in the fact that he's left-handed. There's no other left-handed quarterbacks in the NFL, but he would be playing for a former left-handed quarterback who's his offensive coordinator. It's not so crazy when you think about it. Dallas Cowboys want to be bold, and Tua just happens to say, you know, if I could pick any team, it'd be the Cowboys. Huh. We might be able to make that work. Crazy, Joy?
I mean, it would be exciting. I don't know how much Dallas would have to give up to move up that far.
Yeah, they'd move up from 17 to 3. That's substantial.
A lot.
And there is precedent for this on some levels, right? Remember, the Philadelphia Eagles had re-signed Sam Bradford, and then they moved up to end up drafting Carson Wentz. And look, Carson Wentz has had an injury-plagued career, and he's on that second contract or whatever. But I think if you asked the Philadelphia Eagles, do you have your franchise quarterback? And I believe Dak is better than Sam Bradford. I'm not calling him Sam Bradford. He hasn't broken down like Sam Bradford.
Right.
He's not as accurate as Sam Bradford, but I like Dak Prescott better as a quarterback in the NFL for the next 10 years than I did Sam at that point. But it has happened before, and I do think it worked for the Eagles. They didn't win the Super Bowl because of him, but they were in position to get to the Super Bowl because of him. He would have been the MVP. They were the best team in football.
I mean, I think this is, you know, we're getting close to the draft,
yes.
So we're, you know, pulling it every thread here. I don't think he's saying this in that this is something that's going to happen. It's just kind of interesting.
Yes.
I personally feel like the Cowboys should re-sign Dak. Obviously, they're going to have to overpay him in order to make that happen, but I don't know.
But I'm offering up, do they have to overpay him?
They don't.
Right.
No, but you better have a plan.
Yes. And this is a possible plan.
It's a possibility.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.